What time is it?
It's
It's
almost
10:51.
Okay.
What time did you have to leave?
I have to leave by 11:15 to get home
Okay.
in time. Yeah. Sorry.
Anyway, so to finish that story, they got picked up for vagrancy because they didn't have $25 between them, and there were like 5 or 6 of them. And then the state trooper came back to the house, and about this time we're unloading the shotguns, we're unloading the rifles and stuff, and this trooper walked in, and
Saw
the
this.
hallway's like this. So he comes in the front door, and he sees all these guns, and he sees us unloading our guns, and he goes, "They picked the wrong house." And we said, "Yes."
And they picked
he
the
went,
wrong
"Okay."
woods. Yeah. So a lot of protection into protecting the farm and you know, that beautiful, gorgeous, marvelous woods.
And we later on, I like to load blanks in my 30 right? Because you could go out there, and I hated to shoot bullets because bullets go a distance, right? So I'd take 2 guns out. I'd have one with my blanks, and I'd have one that was actually loaded. And when we'd have gas thieves or whatever, I'd just be popping rounds in their direction with the blanks, and that scared the Jihadis out of them, so they didn't want to come back by. And it didn't hurt too much when Grandpa was having his fun with his varmint friends, you might say. We had Bob Melcher was sheriff, and that was kind of an in if you got a cousin Bob that is sheriff, and you're the cantankerous type of individuals that you are with your varmint buddies that like to have fun and blow dynamite up and
Yeah.
shoot cannons and things like that. So
It was a great childhood.
yes, I always told my mother and Aunt Martha that if this day and age would be, they would have been in prison and we would have been in child protective services.
Something that, because you're so young, you said you were very young, we mentioned the Addams Family. Have you ever seen the old television show, The Addams Family?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
well, that is exactly what our house was
Yeah.
like. There was a train room. We had one of those great big trains, which Danny Spalding still has. And they run it around, and it was completely awesome, but it took up an entire room. But we were always doing something creepy and weird and offbeat. And when I would try to tell my friends when I was a little bit older, when I was in high school, about where I lived, nobody would believe me. And I never lied. It was just the way it was. So
Right.
I finally stopped telling people stories because it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I had the same problem in college. I brought my roommate home my first year of college, and I told them, everybody talked where they lived, you know, and I'd tell them where I lived, and brought my roommate home for a weekend. He goes back to college. I walk into the room, you know how you walk into that room and you know they've been talking about you, and the last words I heard was, "And it's the truth." I had no idea that they were thinking I was making shit up, but yeah, they did. It is kind of hard to believe. I did miss out one time on a Saturday morning. I think I was in college by this time, but I was home for the summer, and on a Saturday morning I had 4 people knock on the door and ask me what time we opened. They'd been down to Friendship, and everybody had talked about the Meltzer place. And if I would have been thinking, because it just didn't dawn on me that early in the morning, what time do we open? If I would have been thinking quick, I would have said, "Oh, we only give private tours," and I would have given them a price, right? Because Grandpa would have played right along with that one, right? But I told them it was a private residence. They went, so they left. And I'm thinking, darn, I missed out.
Missed your
I missed it.
opportunity. Yeah. Well, before you think it was so dangerous that no one would come near the place, I do not know how many summers this happened, but Girl Scout Day Camp was at the farm. Did you know that, Vanessa? Tiny bit. Okay. Mary Jane Jones, or I can't remember the scout leader's name, but they approached my grandfather and they used the log cabin with the pillars near the, which is why it has pillars, is they were for sale. And so Grandpa bought the pillars and had to put them somewhere, so he put them on his log cabins. which wasn't really how most log cabins were made. But there was Girl Scout day camp there, and all the mothers let their little girls come, and collected leaves and things from the woods, and learned how to do campfires, and do all the things that all Girl Scout day camps do, the different games and whatever. And I don't even know how many summers the day camp was there, and I think it went on for 3 weeks. So it was obviously safe because it was repeated, and the only thing that I do remember that had to happen is the water did not test clean enough for the girls to drink. We drank it, but it didn't test clean enough. So they had to bring their own water, and that was the only thing that was kind of drinking water that you purchased didn't exist back then. So all the girls had to come with thermoses of water that they could drink. But you could play in it. They could play in it and use it for other things, but they couldn't
Now,
drink.
the log house in my high school days was known as Uncle Tom's Cabin. And it was a party house, but it was built as a party house. When I was little, Ron, me, I think all of us drank our first beer in the keg that would be in the middle of the log house every Friday and Saturday. And we'd all just sneak in and drink beer. Nobody cared. Again, we weren't corrected. So.
Well, also
the other thing about the farm and the woods, about other people coming in like the Girl Scouts, was the Indianapolis Zoo and Purdue University and IU. They would send animals. They would release animals out into the woods if they had extras. And I think that's how we got one of our snakes, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's how we got.
Yeah,
Elmer.
they had too many boa constrictors that year. We got
Yeah,
snakes.
that's how we got Elmer.
Yeah.
He came down because he was, I think it was McCarthy he was campaigning for, but they slept in a log house. And the guy worked for the Indianapolis Zoo, and Grandpa said he wanted a boa constrictor. So he brought him a snake. Anyway, my mother hated snakes, but that was okay. We had the boa constrictor. We named it Elmer, and Grandpa would have timber buyers coming in all the time, flashing big wads of money, figuring the old man needed the cash, and he'd sell these trees. And Grandpa'd finally get tired of talking to him. He'd sit there in his wheelchair and he'd go, "Well, you want to see my new pet Elmer?" And timber buyers would turn around and say, thinking dog, cat. And so he said, "Sure, what is it?" He says, "Oh, it's a boa constrictor." And they'd get nervous and fidgety in their chair. And of course they were saying, "Well, where is it?" And Grandpa would just spit and kind of look around the floor and say, "Oh, somewhere around here." And the guy would jump up and run out of the house, and that was the way he did it. Of course, he'd do it with little old ladies too, so Mom would have to run in there saying, "Whoa."
Stop.
But what professor was it? There was some university professor, and I thought it was from Purdue, who would come down and talk and he would bring his students down.
Oh yeah.
That was the ecology class at Purdue University. The botany class, they studied the plants, they studied the forest basically. Yeah. And he would come down with his friends, and what was his name?
Lindsay? Was it
yeah,
Professor
Dr. Lindsay.
That's what's in my
Dr.
brain.
Lindsay. And that you're correct, it was Dr. Lindsay, and he would sit on the floor cross-legged with him and his buddies and listen to my grandfather's stories. Yeah. He would tell story after story about the farm, and then Philip would go out, and he knew all the trees in the woods, and he would be able to tell them about all the plants and the different trees and how long they'd been there and what was going on. And it turned out that they would bring their university classes down for a field trip, and Philip would actually instruct the classes on the woods because the professor loved it.